I'm really excited to talk about the FanChart view of Family Tree. It's one of my favorites. So when I go to FamilySearch.org, hover over Family Tree and then click on Tree, it will bring me back to the last way I was viewing my ancestors. And you can see that I was viewing them in the landscape view. So I'm going to click on that and it will bring down this drop down menu. I will click on FanChart and then it will bring up my ancestors just in a different view. So I love how I have the ability over here where it says generations. I can go up to 7 generations on these ancestors. So I'm going to click on that so you can see more of them. And the part that's really fun on here is this legend area, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. I'm not going to be covering this far left-hand side or the options or the light bulb because I did that in the landscape view and the portrait view, and I just feel like I don't need to do that again. In this particular view, the only way that I can see if my ancestor has more spouses is if they're in the very center of the fan chart, and I would either have an arrow on the left or the right of the spouse, and that would show me that he actually had more spouses, but you can see he was only married once. If I put his wife in the center, you'll be able to see that she now has an arrow which tells me she was married to somebody else. So when I click on that, it will put her other spouse in the center, and they had no children together, or they would be showing up right here. So I will go back and put her first husband up there, and I'm going to put him back in the center. Any one of these ancestors that I want to put in the center of the fan chart, if I hover over them, there becomes this dark gray area with a little fan chart, and if I click on that, it puts them in the center. So I'll be doing that with Robert Clinton Scott. I'll click right there, put him back in the center. Now if you look over here on the left-hand side, this is the view that I will be seeing over here in my fan chart. So right now we're looking at the family lines, which it's all color coordinated. I love that because you can tell which ancestors come from which line. It's wonderful. I can then come over here to birth country, and when I click on birth country, notice how this popped up right over here. So it quickly tells me where my ancestors were born. Anybody in the blue, you can see the legend here, they were born in the United States. If I were to click on that blue, it actually outlines all the ones that were born in the United States just to make it easy for me to be able to see them quickly. If I click on that blue area again over here, it unhighlights that, so I can go down and do that to each one. But this part I love, so I can get a quick glimpse of where my ancestors came from. The next one is the sources. This tells me which ancestors have sources attached to them in their personal detail page. Over here in the legend, once again, I can see the ones that have 1 to 4 sources. If I click on it, because that's a pretty light color, it will highlight the ones that have that 1 to 4, or it highlights the one that have 5 to 9 sources, or the 10 plus. So that's great. Here I go back over to the left and click on stories. And evidently this line hasn't been worked on a whole lot because there are hardly any that have stories. But once again, if I click over here, it will highlight that so I can see it a little bit better. This is, for me, I love this area because it's a quick way for me to go find stories to be able to share with my family about my ancestors. Same thing with photos. I can tell the machine, hey, I want to see which ancestors have photos attached to them in their memories. And then once again, look at the legend and it will show you which ones have them. The research helps. This is a way that I can come in and do cleanup work for my ancestors if I'm just not knowing what I want to do for that day with them. The red, here's my legend, are data problems. These blue are the ones that tell me which ones have record hints that might possibly have to do with my ancestors. So maybe some of them have birth certificates that are just sitting waiting for me to see if it really does belong to my ancestor, and I can attach it to them if it really does. The research suggestions are places that I can go and fix things that really aren't correct about my ancestors. I can then click on ordinances, and this helps me to be able to see over here at this legend which ones have work available for temple work, which ones need more information, and which ones are in progress. So you can see once again, if I click on it, it highlights them so I can make it a little bit easier to go see that. If I were wanting to get into any one of these ancestors' information to see more detail about them, I would just simply click on their name and it brings up their summary card, and then I could go into their personal detail page by clicking on their name again or down here where it says person, and I would be able to go view them in more depth. The last thing I want to show you is under options, which I told you I wasn't going to go into, but hey, I changed my mind. When I click on print, it actually generates a 7 generation view of my ancestors in that FanChart view, and it is color coordinated, and then I could go print it off. And I love how you can even go take it into a copy place and they can blow this thing up really big for you. So anyways, that is the beauty of the FanChart view.